hard-hitting questions coming out of yesterday. I think one of them was whether or not the horns down is going to be 15-yard penalty in the SEC in the future.
That it was very important to finish and to collect the trophy and to win 10 games and win a game on New Year's Day and all those things. And believe me, we had a great belief in our locker room. We didn't have to do anything special, just be us. I was so proud of this team. We had so much fun, it ought to be illegal.
I said in my press conference back in December that I didn't feel like there was anything at South Carolina that we lacked to be a championship program, that we had everything that we needed. I am even more convinced of that now after being there for 7 months.
There's a report in the Houston Chronicle that Texas and Oklahoma are inquiring about joining the SEC.
I bet they would.
War Eagle. Feels good to say that.
All right. I didn't even remember that 12 years ago, but now that you say that, because I believe there was something about someone didn't have Tebowed first team all SEC, and as usual I was accused of that, so I brought my ballot to show everyone, to show Urban.
Hey buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.
Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Brennan. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I cannot tell you how happy I am to hear your voice after your month-long vacation down there in Orlando. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm great, brother. I am absolutely great. I was ready to get back. You know how it is. Sometimes you could be gone too long, and I know that's a luxury that a lot of people don't have, and I know I'm privileged and blessed, but I tell you what, man, it was great seeing my family. It was great hanging out with you guys. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I wanted to get everybody down there. And then, of course, as you know, the second half, we went and spent a few nights over at my oldest's house down there in West Palm, which is a real cool little town. But I tell you, buddy, I missed this bed. I missed my shower. I missed everything. I missed the luxury of being at home. So I was ready to get back to work so I can start paying for this damn vacation. And other than that, man, it's been good. But now we got the Super Bowl coming up. I mean, things are ramping up real quick with football. So I'm glad to be back, Mike, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if anybody missed it, go back. It was last week when I got back. I told the Epcot story from my side of the fence. I'm wondering if you could share with the audience your side of that day, and maybe the day after. That was pretty funny too. But for anybody that doesn't know, I'd never been to Epcot, and it's basically designed to where there's a 2-mile walking trail. It's a circle, and every so often is a new country. So that you could be in China one minute, you could be in France the next minute, you could be in England. And then they all have unique drinks and food for each country. Why don't you take it from there, Shane? And your idea for Epcot, which sounded great on paper, but about two hours in, I was tapping out.
Hey, I'll tell you what, man. You said 2.5 miles. It felt like we walked each one of these damn countries. I ain't gonna lie, Mike. I mean, I was exhausted, but my oldest, she did a tour down there once, and it was, drink something from each country that's represented in Epcot. And I said, man, like you said, on paper, that sounds great. So I'm all in, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't factor, the whole athleticism part of it, I mean, because my feet were damn killing me because we just did a park the day before, but I was in, man. I said, you know what? Let's do this. So we get to Epcot, and the premise, like you said, each area has got its own little country, own little flair. There's several of them. I don't even know how many. I lost count. But at each country, we were going to drink some sort of alcohol. Some beers at some places, some, shots at other places, sake at other places. I mean, you name it. So the problem was, I think, Mike, be honest with you, we started out in one of my favorite country, and that's Mexico. I didn't want to leave, and I didn't want to just drink one drink. So I got a little couple shots there in Mexico, and which was at the time felt like a good idea. But by the time we landed to France, brother, as you know, I was blitzed, man. I was like, we got to stop. We got to slow down. We got to find a restaurant to eat because we got like half the continents left. And at this point, if we continue this, they're going to have to wheel me out. So we stopped there in Italy, had some pizza, and got back to work. And, man, it was fantastic. The beers that I drank, I think one of the best ones I had, believe it or not, was a Chinese beer. I mean, you could taste the orange in it and all this stuff. I think maybe I liked it so much because I wasn't expecting that. But my favorite beer had to be from Canada because that meant we made it to the end. And by God, we did it, brother. My oldest, she had to be helped out of the park, but not everybody's a seasoned vet like Cousin Shane. I was ready to go for round 2.
Now, I also told the story of because this is how ill prepared Shane was. I mean, the sun was beating down.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was the alcohol or the sun.
Yeah.
But he's beat red about halfway through this thing, and he had to buy him a straw hat. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. Did you keep the hat? That's all I want to know.
I'm looking at it right now. It's part of the studio, Mike. I don't know what these Chinese words say on it, but by that point, I realized it was really hot, man. It was extremely hot down there, and this is China. So if you know China, we're about 1/4 of Epcot in here, and I'm like, if we continue this rate, I'm going to pass out just from heat exhaustion. So I did buy me one of these Chinese hats, and it looked funny, buddy, but I'm going to tell you, it provided plenty of shade, and it was it's probably the best investment I made at Disney, to be honest with you. I'm looking at my Chase app here, and I'm like, oh my God, we financed Disney for a day, but this $20 hat was the best thing that I did down there, and I think it saved me. I think it saved me in the long run. And what was funny is, we're a small group, because every now and then you'd see another little guy with a Chinese hat. And it's like you ever drive down the road and you see the motorcycle guys wave at each other, or the Jeep guys wave at each other, or you're on the boat, you wave at each other. Well, these Chinese hats, man, it was a small group, but we knew, and every time I passed one, he goes, hey, man, nice hat.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that story, Shane, but we got to get this show on the road. And,
yes,
we can't top that, but this comes damn close because, man, we love the behind-the-scenes recruiting stories, and we love Coach O. He may no longer be a head coach here in the SEC, but, he's got a special place in our heart, and he's down there for the Super Bowl to hopefully, we're recording this before the Super Bowl, so we don't know who won it, but clearly he's rooting for the Bengals, rooting for Joe Burrow. And Coach O was on the Dan Patrick Show and shared one of the best recruiting stories I've ever heard. He was, of course, talking about the great Oklahoma running back, Adrian Peterson. And at this time, Coach O was at Southern Cal trying to get Adrian Peterson to Los Angeles. Let's take it here from Coach O.
Who broke your heart? Is there one that stands out?
Oh, Adrian Peterson.
Oh.
Man, I loved him. I loved Adrian.
Oklahoma offered a better package to him.
This is a true story. We go down to see Adrian, me and Pete, and his mother ran track at, I think it was at Houston. Wonderful lady. And Adrian and I had a great relationship. He loved Pete Carroll, but I felt like he and I were very tight. One time he says, Coach, I went to this school. He says, Coach, I want you to follow me. I couldn't drive with him. We went 30 miles. I said, I didn't know where we were going. We stopped at this little country store, and he bought a gingerbread cookie. I couldn't buy it for him for supper. And then we went to a basketball game. And we sat in the gym, and I said, what are we doing? He said, you see that guard right there? I got to play him next week. Coach, come and scout him. How about that? Then I said, well, Adrian, what is the key to getting you here at USC? He says, Coach, well, Bob Stoops, my dad is incarcerated. Bob Stoops won't see him. Well, me and Pete Carroll tried to go get him and to go see him. They wouldn't let us in. But Adrian said, Coach, my dad is be able to watch my games where he's at. Well, if I go to Oklahoma, I tried to get the guy transferred to Los Angeles.
Wait, you tried to get Adrian's dad?
Yeah, that's right.
How does that happen?
I competed. Couldn't get it done, but I competed.
All right, Shane. So I mean, I've just when you think you've heard it all in recruiting, you get a story like this. I mean, trying to get an incarcerated parent transferred closer to the school of choice. I mean, what a story there from Coach O.
Hey, man, say what you want, but I think on Nick Saban could get it done these days. You know? Man, that is a wild, wild story. And I talked to my boss today about this. I couldn't believe it. I've never heard it. And he's from that area. He was from Oklahoma, and he was telling me the city and everything, and it's legit. They really tried to move him, but they just couldn't get it done. And it kind of reminds you of you remember that movie Blue Chips?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like it kind of that's recruiting though, man. And if you think, I mean, I know that's to the extreme, but if you think that's the wildest recruiting story you've heard, buddy, that ain't even close. But that was something else, man.
Oh, man.
Could you imagine that phone call, Coach O? Like, I mean, how do you even start that process? I mean, there were some palms getting paid then, man.
No doubt. Well, Shane, so basically the only real big show topic here wanted to discuss, because it became official since our last podcast on Friday, but Auburn has come out and made it definitive. Bryan Harsin staying for at least another season. I mean, they're committed to Bryan Harsin. This is one of the first times, maybe the first time ever in the history of the SEC that a school has investigated its coach and had to release a statement saying this guy's coming back, and we're talking about after just one season. So, man, what a wild, wild story down there on the plains. But, you know, after, I think I probably hit you up 5 or 6 times saying, hey, I think today's the day Bryan Harsin is going to be fired at Auburn, yet they turn around, they do a 180 after an internal investigation. They're sticking with their man. And I know, Shane, you've been off the grid, you've been on vacation, so yeah. I'm just here to answer any questions you got. But, you know, how wild is it that, you know, this is where we got after, you know, all indication was Bryan Harsin was going to be out at Auburn. Now he's back. And, you know, based on you know, early reaction, he showed up at the basketball game over the weekend. They're going crazy for this guy. I think he's got more support than he's ever had at Auburn now that they tried to fire him and they couldn't do it.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Mike. I don't know the whole situation. Like you said, I was off the grid. I you know, the information that I was gathering was from our group text messages, you know, and it was always about some young lady and Bryan, and apparently something bad happened. So, I mean, I had the ingredients, but I didn't know exactly how this thing played out. And like you said, I got the feeling that he was fired, and then he's back. I made the joke about about playing at the casino. You know, it's one of those deals. Do you think? Let me ask you, Mike. Do you think that this boils down to they couldn't find enough to? Because obviously there's nothing wrong with Auburn firing Bryan Harsin, but I think it was more, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if there's no show cause, you still got to pay the guy, just like you're paying a guy that's at UCF right now. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
You can't afford to be paying all these coaches just off the rumor mill. So do you think that's what it was, that they looked into this? And when they say look into it, I think they looked into it just enough to see if they can get out of paying him. Am I right or wrong?
No, I think you're right on the mark, and you referenced Gus Malzahn. I mean, they just paid the guy a year ago. he doesn't get it in one large sum or anything, but $40 million committed to Gus Malzahn. I think he got about $20 million of that already, and it's one of those deals, kind of like Butch at Tennessee, or some of these other coaches where he'll get the rest over time. But yeah, I think it would have been a real hard pill, Shane, to turn around a year after committing all that money to Gus Malzahn, to turn around and say, all right, Brian, this is not working out. Here's 18 point whatever million you're going to get, not to mention however many million it's going to take to bring in the next coaching staff. So from what I understand, there's so much rumor, so much allegations. What this really boiled down to was the fact that so many assistants left the program. He's going to be on his 5th coordinator in 14 months. It's an incredible turnaround here. So many players leaving via the transfer portal. It was more about that and some of the exit interviews that those people would have with Auburn to raise red flags about Bryan Harsin and just how difficult he is to work with. And I mean, I don't think you can read it any other way. Just if you look at how it's transpired at Auburn, how it's transpired at Boise, you're hearing some of those same things. Not personal allegations, but just he's a tough guy to work with. I've heard you've seen it from the players themselves saying this guy's a great coach, but he just does not know how to relate to us as players. Now, that's not unanimous, because for every player you had saying that, you had about 2 or 3 saying, this is our coach. He's coaching us. He's not our friend. He's our leader. He's our coach. That's what we need to get where we need to get. I mean, hell, even one of the guys that was calling him out, Smoke Monday, said, if this guy learns how to treat people, he's the next Nick Saban. So, I mean, they certainly have a high regard of his coaching ability, but at the end of the day, there was nothing there based on their internal investigation to get rid of this guy for anything he's done. And Bryan Harsin called their bluff. And as soon as behind the wheels, it was, this internal investigation, I think the people, and everybody knows who they are, the big boosters down there that hated Bryan Harsin hire. They didn't want him hired in the first place. They wanted Kevin Steele. They've been against this day one. As soon as they heard about this investigation, I think they started leaking all these rumors and allegations. And I mean, it was a joke. It was in the morning he's having an affair, and then in the afternoon he's abusive, and then by the evening they were saying he's racist. I mean, this was like all in the same day, all getting pushed out, and it's wild that after a year all this would drop on the same day. I mean, to me it just read as something that's manufactured. And I've since seen, Shane, I mean, I've probably seen 10 articles saying, well, Auburn's just torpedoed their program. Bryan Harsin, he'll never work here. Auburn, if they're going to fire him, they should have just done it, and they're just delaying the inevitable. I think that's the easy way to analyze this situation. And I would honestly go a 180, Shane, because after the way Auburn's season finished, losing 5 straight, I don't think the fan base was too enthused about the Bryan Harsin era. And now that, they tried to run him out of town, they made all this scandalous, there's been rumors about his family, there's been rumors about an affair, and none of that stuck, none of that worked. And now it seems like he's really got the support of true Auburn people. And I got to assume that the coaches and the players that stayed, I think they're going to work their ass off to make sure that Bryan Harsin is a success at Auburn. And I just think it's easy to sit here and say, well, he's got to face Nick Saban in Alabama, the greatest dynasty of all time. And then on the other side of the spectrum, their East counterpart, Georgia, is looking like, the future juggernaut potentially of the SEC, just won the national championship. They got the talent. They may win another one here in the near future. So, he is certainly between a rock and a hard place. I understand that, but I just think it's cheap and it's easy to say, well, he's not going to work at Auburn, because let's say they hire Urban Meyer. I think you can make the same argument that he's still got to face Nick Saban and Kirby and Jimbo and Brian Kelly and Mike Leach and Sam Pittman. I mean, hell, it's a tough job regardless. I understand, the PR hit, but, I was hearing the same shit, Shane, this time last year at Tennessee. Josh Heupel, what a joke. There was people that said Tennessee 5 years there before they get to a bowl game. I mean, people forget. I mean, it's because this is the off season. There's not much going on. So, Auburn is right now the center of the college football world. But if you turn around and you have a solid season, no one's going to remember any of this garbage. Now, They certainly do need to pick it up, I think, on the recruiting trail and do a little bit better job. But it's not like, he's the world's worst recruiter here. I mean, we got a top 20 recruiting class in his first season there at Auburn. So, I'm just not buying into that this is going to be a disaster and Auburn will never recover from this. I think, if anything, we're going to see the level of buy-in incredibly high from this Auburn program. And I'm going to be rooting for Bryan Harsin after what he and his family had to go through the last week and a half.
Mike, it's talking season. You know what I'm saying? This was a Twitter-fueled, witch hunt, if you will. Right. And I think when the dust settles, you're going to find there probably were some big boosters behind some of this, because you don't get some of these huge news outlets to just, throw anything out there without some influence. So I think there's a little where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm sure we're going to hear something come out. But, when I hear players talk about coaches not being, it's a job, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get there's some player coaches out there that are very successful, and then there's some that's not. And, it's like if I'm having open heart surgery, Mike, I want to go to a doctor that is the best at that field. I don't give a shit about his bedside manner. You know what I'm saying? He could come in there, he could tell me I'm overweight and it's my fault and whatever. I don't need to be babied, but I want the best there. And you think about the Auburn Tigers, what I think about, Mike, they're a few seconds away from beating Alabama.
Right.
What kind of story are we singing if that would have went a different way? So I don't know. I know it wasn't the perfect season. Things didn't work out. You're going to have turmoil in the locker room when you have a coach switch. It happens every single time. So it shouldn't be new news that some of the players don't like the new coach. But I think this, like you said, this witch hunt and everything that they went through, they're already starting to spin it a little bit, I've noticed, and make it a good thing. Make it a fun program. Yes, they got Alabama on one side and Georgia on the other, but that just means more airtime on TV, baby. That means you know what I'm saying? That means you're going to be on CBS a few more times and take advantage of it, because everybody was glued to that TV during the Iron Bowl. Yeah. Everybody was glued to the TV when Georgia was playing them. So, things didn't go exactly as planned, but the country was watching them. And what happens when Auburn does turn that page, when they do find a quarterback, when they do pull off an upset or anything like that? Next thing you know, Auburn's the top dog again. And the last time they were there, they won a national championship. So this is a national championship program. They got national championship money. They got everything in place needed for Bryan to be successful. And it feels like we're starting to get some of the players, some of the fans starting to buy back into this program, because let's face it, you're stuck with him. All right? You're stuck with him for a few years. They tried to rattle a cage. They tried to get him out of here. You ain't getting Urban Meyer. You better love the one you got, because I'm telling you what, Mike, you could be a bad hire away. And I don't think Bryan was a bad hire. I think for a first-year coach, he did great down there. Like I said, it wasn't a perfect season, but it could be a lot worse, man. It could be a Derek Dooley situation. Right. And next thing you know, your program is 5 years behind. So Auburn is not that. They got a top 20 recruiting class. They can continue to grow. And I'm very pumped to see what these guys do in the future.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Shane, we reference it, all the teams in the SEC that are the arrows pointing up and they have clear leadership, clear direction. You got to get behind this guy. Otherwise, you got no chance in hell of catching up to Alabama, Georgia, and just look what A&M's doing, and look what LSU appears to be doing under Brian Kelly, Sam Pittman and company, Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach. I mean, all these programs are pushing in the right direction. If you're not all in on this guy, good luck. That's basically end of the message. You'll just never compete with those teams regularly. You know what?
Not anytime soon, for sure.
Now, of course, Shane, the big game here, Super Bowl. Like I said, we're recording this, so I don't really want to preview a game that once people start listening to this, they'll have already heard. But it's such a unique Super Bowl for many reasons, but a big one for us being an SEC focused show is just the fact that it's Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, two of the best SEC quarterbacks in recent history, and a ton of players on both sides of the team, just loaded with SEC talent. And I thought it would be fun to just ask you, Shane. And I mean, you can answer Joe Burrow, you can answer Matthew Stafford, but and you don't have to necessarily. I'm not asking you to do a rankings list or anything, but it is the off season, and that's one of the things I love about college football is just sitting back and talking about it and debating it. And I'm just curious to know, Shane, where do these two rank among some of your favorite SEC quarterbacks to ever play the game that you and I have sat back and watched, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, obviously, are you talking about why they're in the pros or why they were in college?
No, I'm just talking straight in the SEC in college football. And, I'll give you an example. The one that comes to my mind that I just could never get enough of, and I got to be honest, I didn't really even buy into this program being in the SEC when it first happened. But once I saw Johnny Manziel play football, I could not get enough of the Texas A&M Aggies. And hell, like I said, I'm from Tennessee. I had no connection to Texas A&M. But as soon as I just saw that magician back there, man, I could not get enough of Texas A&M football when Johnny Manziel was there. And I know it didn't work out for him in the NFL, but man, anytime if there's a classic game on that's an old Aggie game that's got Johnny Manziel all the time, I'm pulling up his highlights on YouTube just to watch just what a damn magician he was back there in the pocket. I'm just curious to know, some of the favorite quarterbacks that you've got to watch SEC.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Just some of them. Well, I'll tell you, these guys, both of them are up the list. But I would say more Joe, just because of the story of LSU and, just, I don't know, just nobody picked him. You know what I'm saying? He goes down there and he just finds his way onto the field and puts together one of the most beautiful offensive seasons I've ever seen in my life. So I would say Joe Burrows is up there. Now, Stafford, on the other hand, I mean, Tennessee was kicking their ass back in the day. So, I mean, I wasn't too impressed. But, no, I'm just kidding. He had some great games. And I love his story more in the pros. Yeah. Just the fact, he's up there at Detroit trying his best. Everybody tries to be. I like that Barry Sanders, finally gets out. And what does he do? He's competing for a Super Bowl. So I think I'm more impressed with Matt as a professional player than I was a college player. Not taking anything away from what he did at the collegiate level, but if you're talking about all-time quarterbacks, well, obviously, Mike, I am a Tennessee homer, and I can't go without mentioning Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning was. But see, I'm old school too, man. I was a huge Heath Schuler fan growing up, so I had the jersey. I wanted to beat Heath Schuler growing up. Then he became a bust in the NFL. So I don't know. When I'm thinking about all-time quarterbacks, brother, I'm thinking of guys like Cam Newton. I'm thinking of guys like you said, Johnny Football. It just felt like these guys could actually and it felt at times Joe Burrow. That's what I love about these quarterbacks that I'm talking about. It felt like they could put the whole game on their arm and win it. You know what I'm saying? There was plenty of moments you're like counting some of these games out, and you're just like, how the hell did, like you said, Johnny Football get that off? Or how in the hell did Cam Newton stay on his feet? It's like right. There's just so many great athletes that have come through the SEC. But in my lifetime, the ones that I've been impressed with, I would say, are those guys. I know I'm probably leaving somebody off, and I'm probably going to get bashed online, but I would say those top five. I'd say Peyton, just off the top of my head, Cam, not in that order, but Peyton, Cam, Johnny. Who else did I mention there? Is that the only three? Is it a top three list?
Joe Burrow.
Oh, Joe Burrow. Okay, yeah, he's definitely on there. I will say Tim Tebow. Sorry,
That's another one.
That's an easy one. Yeah, Tim Tebow was another one that just I could not wait for his ass to get out of college. You know what I'm saying? As a Tennessee fan, but what he was able to do in some games, and like I said, just put the team on his back. Those guys, that's going to be my top 5 when I'm thinking quarterbacks. And I'm probably missing a few, but you got to remember, I was born 82, so I don't remember some of the older guys like some of you guys probably do. But in my lifetime, watching those games and just what they were able to do on the field, and just like I said, it wasn't so much that I was impressed, but I couldn't wait for them to graduate. It's the truth, man. I couldn't wait because I wasn't doing a podcast at the time, Mike. I was just solely a Tennessee ball fan, and if we didn't have one of those guys, I was pissed off. So I guess that's what I grew up to.
I remember Tebow, Shane, when when he was a freshman, they would bring him in for like short yardage, and he was like a rah guy. He was energy, and I basically thought he was a fullback. And when his sophomore season came around, I was like, well, this will be a disaster because you can't have a damn fullback as a quarterback. I mean, what the hell's he going to do? And then he puts together one of the most impressive seasons of all time. He was just perfect for that Urban Meyer system with his ability to run, his ability to throw, and all the athletes surrounding around. I mean, it's hard to rank anyone over Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
I think he should have won 2 Heisman trophies. I really do. I thought he got robbed his final year there. I know that Ingram had a hell of a SEC championship and an Iron Bowl that has legendary status down there. But Tim Tebow for me, right up there. And do you remember the first time that I don't know if you can even remember this, but probably the first time you heard about Matthew Stafford? I watched him play at Georgia. I think it was his true freshman season. I don't believe he was the starter. He came in as a backup, and this was when you were living in your apartment with a couple of our buddies there, and I tried to tell you guys about this damn guy and his arm. Do you remember what I said about Matthew Stafford?
No.
You guys
That's probably 3 sheets in the wind, man.
You guys made fun of me for about a year and a half, but I said, this guy's the next John Elway, because that's what kind of cannon this guy had. And hey, I think that proved to be true. I don't know if there's a player with a more gifted arm than Matthew Stafford. Now I know he certainly had a great college career, but never led him to that elusive national title that they just turned around and got. But he's a legend in his own right. But one guy that I always think about, and I don't know if he has any records or anything, but we honor him here on the show with the statue, the hefty lefty, Jared Lorenzen. He's right up there for me. I don't know, very, very few players were as fun, as entertaining as Jared Lorenzen. And I know it was on a lot of losing teams. And, he put up impressive stats, but, Kentucky was never that much of a threat until Mark Stoops got there. But I always loved watching the hefty lefty play.
Yeah, no, that's a good one, man. He gave all those fat guys hope, that why can't I be quarterback? Then I asked my coach, and he's like, just block the guy in front of you. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I obviously very inspirational, man. Speaking with Kentucky, I remember the Tim Couch. I remember when it was Peyton and Tim going back and forth. That was supposed to be an epic game.
Yep.
He did great up there. So, yeah, there was – obviously, Mike, there's been so many great storylines come through the SEC, especially at quarter – Warfel. Even Chris Leak. I know I give him a hard time because of Tim Tebow. I think he should have been out there sooner. But, Chris Leak was a serviceable quarterback that won a lot of games for the Florida Gators, So let me ask you, though, because we're just hashing here. Not one of us has mentioned an Alabama quarterback. Is that fair? Is that fair that we've not mentioned one Alabama quarterback because of the product Nick Saban has put together for so many years? I mean, obviously he's always had a stacked team, but there have been some great players. Look what Mac did at New England this year. I mean, are we missing? Are we not giving them enough credit just because they're on loaded ball clubs?
Well, the thing with Nick Saban's program, it was always, they got elite players except a quarterback. I mean, it was always Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron type. I'm thinking of who was the guy that they started when they had Derrick Henry. I can't think of his name. But, that was always the case until they got Jalen Hurts in there. And he was a phenomenon, and then it just went another level with Tua. With Tua, it went to another level, and then I thought it would be a huge drop-off with Mac Jones, but hell, he was arguably better than anything they've had, and now, of course, they've got the great Bryce Young, and it's just totally changed the narrative down there. So, I think by the time Bryce Young hangs him up at Alabama and goes on to the NFL, he'll certainly be in this discussion. Just his incredible debut. Now he's got to win at least one title, I think, given the reputation of some of the guys that came before him to reach that status. But I certainly, of those guys, I mean, I love Jalen Hurts and just his leadership and his toughness. But I think you may have hit it there, Shane. I love the fact that Mac Jones signed on in the same class as Tua, and he waited his turn. He could have transferred out at any point. So many guys do these days. And he only got 1 year to start, and he made the most of it. And, one of the best individual seasons of all time there. So, of all those guys, I'd probably put Mac Jones first, just in my personal opinion, with Jalen Hurts right, just a smidge behind him. And I particularly love the fact that Jalen Hurts, when he lost his job to Tua, he didn't make a big scene of it. And it could have been such a distraction, but he was such a leader. And such a team first guy that he didn't make it about himself when I think the vast majority of us probably would have and would have transferred out of that program for sure. You know what?
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. That's the thing. Some of these quarterbacks get lost. You know what I'm saying? You look back 20 years and you forget about Connor Shaw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
somebody like that.
That's a perfect
you know
one.
what I'm saying?
I love watching him play.
But when you're talking Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, you don't think about it as if you're a South Carolina fan, their top five easily would have him in there. You know what I'm saying? If you talk to a Vandy, you got to put Cutler somewhere in there. You know what I'm saying? So there's been so many great quarterbacks come through our league and go on to play at the next level. This Super Bowl is a prime example. We got two of them playing against each other, but there's so many athletes in the NFL at quarterback, So I don't know, man. I just waiting for the next chapter. We're going to look back in 15 more years and we're going to say, well, damn, dude, what about Love? He's the best. Who knows what's going to happen? But, I don't know. That's a loaded question and where everybody on this podcast listening is going to have a different answer and they're going to have a different story. But it's a story. You know what I'm saying? You may have went to a game with somebody, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And watched one and then, that guy may not even have started the following season, but that game that you were there, he did something impressive and maybe it was your first game ever seeing a college football. I mean, we've all like the Heath Schuler thing. A lot of people on this podcast probably don't know Heath Schuler as much as I do. Right. But the first game I ever seen as a Tennessee Vol fan was him running through the end zone. Man, I got the jersey the next day, and me and my brother were out there throwing football, and guess what? When we're playing, I'm Heath Schuler now, He's stuck with Rocket Ishmael, but, or then when I got bigger, I had to switch to the fridge, but, it's like growing up, that quarterback meant more to me. Heath Schuler meant more to me than Peyton Manning does, and I love Peyton Manning, but that wasn't the quarterback I grew up that's not the one that made me fall in love with this sport. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear what all the listeners think too, man. We post this pod tomorrow. If you got a story or a quarterback that, really meant a lot to you, I'd be interested and to tell us why. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you got a picture with them or something.
Mm-hmm. One guy we didn't reference, I can't get off here without mentioning him because one of my favorites, Shane, and this was when I first got into the media, and I put this out there as the dark horse to win the SEC. I got mocked relentlessly my first year at Fox Sports. Mississippi State, 2014. I was a huge believer in Dak Prescott, who, that's a Louisiana kid, got an offer from LSU to play tight end, yet he goes to Mississippi State, plays for Dan Mullen. He leaves that program as, I don't think there's any argument, the best player in that program history. And just how incredible he was and reached the heights of number one in the country. He was a Heisman contender. And then similar to Peyton Manning, could have went on to the NFL after his junior season, came back to one more year, senior season, become a better passer, became an even better passer than he was his junior season. And, of course, now he's one of the biggest stars in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys. But, I think Mississippi State's been good for a long time. They got one of the longest bowl streaks in the SEC. But they didn't reach those new heights without Dak Prescott. And I think that's kind of the story maybe you're kind of referencing where, it's great to land the 5-star and all these guys get all these expectations and you can't wait to see him play. But I doubt even the biggest diehard Mississippi State fan said when they signed Dak Prescott that this will be our guy. You know what I mean? But you fall in love with him over the years after just, their gutty performances and beating LSU and Baton Rouge and winning the Egg Bowl and all the heights you get with these players. And, he's certainly one that sticks out in my mind as an all-time great at that quarterback position in the SEC.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Arkansas. They're on the swing. You know what I'm saying? And if they're competing for national championships in 2 or 3 years, you're going to look back at KJ Jefferson, a quarterback that didn't have the accolades all these other players had, and I don't know what his future is in the NFL, but as an Arkansas fan, you're going to look back to the guy that started this, that started this swing, and it's just, I don't know. I think, like you said, it's a little bit of a loaded question because one fun story, man, I know I'm rambling, but James Banks, you remember him, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, well, one time I was young. Okay, he had a little problem there with Tennessee, whatever. But he was at a party next door, and we were next door playing NCAA, and we're in and out. People are drinking and stuff like that. And he comes through there, and he says he's got next. So I won, and James comes over to play the game, and I said, he goes, "Who you want to beat?" I said, "I'm going to be Tennessee." I said, "You can beat whoever you want." And he says, "All right." He says, "Well, I'm going to grab a beer. I'll be back." Well, while he was gone, I changed my lineup and I put him at quarterback because he was still on the game, and I changed, and his name's on there and everything. And I smoked him, and I kept, boy, he got mad. But I said, "Man, you didn't expect to get beat by yourself today." Oh, man. I'm glad he didn't challenge me to a 40 or something like that because he would have smoked me. But video games, I got his ass.
Well, hey, Shane, I think that's a perfect place to end it. But, I just thought during the off season, maybe little fun topics like this, maybe a little bit more interesting than typical, because there's just such a lack of news at this point in time until we get to the spring. But I cannot wait to watch this Super Bowl and see who wins it, see which SEC quarterback is going to be a Super Bowl champion. And they won't be alone because each of these teams got about 20 players each with SEC alumni. So SEC is going to be well represented here in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But, hey, brother, that's all I got. You got anything else before we hop off the line?
Well, who you got? I mean, I got to ask.
I've been saying all week that I think the Rams are going to win it because I just don't think that the Cincinnati's offensive line is going to be able to contain Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and company.
Yeah.
But I'm going to flip it, man. Joe Burrow and Cincinnati, they're on such a hot streak. This guy's like the damn Terminator, Shane. Just refuses to go down, refuses to give in. And Joe Burrow's he's just a damn champion. That's all he is.
Oh, yeah.
And this may go down as, he may be one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. And, I'm just going to appreciate every moment we get with him. So I'm going with the upset, Shane. I'm picking the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. And I'm ready for this clip to come back and bite me. Who you got?
Well, I absolutely love Joe. I loved him at LSU. I loved him to the very point he put that Cincinnati jersey on, because as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I just cannot get past it. So I'm going to take the Rams, and I'm not going to take them because I hate Cincinnati. I'm going to take the Rams because, by God, Mike, this is Georgia's year. I mean, think about it. The Braves, the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, the quarterback, Matthew Stafford. You talk about a Cinderella story. I got to go with that. So give me the Rams over Cincinnati. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. My wife, of course, she's looking forward to the commercials and the halftime show. So we're going to be up all night watching that, brother, and texting throughout the night. But, yeah, give me the Rams, and I'm excited, brother. I mean, this is not a Super Bowl anyone expected to see.
No.
Cincinnati hasn't been there in, 30-something years, so this is a big deal, and I'm looking forward to it just because it's different.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, and I think just both fan bases, collective sigh of relief we didn't both pick them to win this damn game, because would be a guaranteed lock that the other team would win it. You know what?
That's right, absolutely. So, all right, man. Well, it's good talking to you again, and I look forward to seeing you later this week. Right? We're gonna start doing some more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to see what happens. I hope to have more guests on the week. I've been just having guests crazy, so I hope everyone appreciates us going around the league and getting insight from different insiders. But, yeah, so stay tuned. The show ain't going anywhere, but I appreciate you, Shane, as always, hopping on the line. We got some reviews that need to be read at some point, so
yes,
get those reviews in. Shane's going to read them on the next episode. But that's going to do it, Shane. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Everybody be safe out there. Have a great time, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.